Alright guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, going to be replacing the so-called Mickey Mouse flange on this N235i with the N55 engine. So let's open up the bonnet and I'll show you guys. Okay, so I've got my torch so I can show you guys, but basically it's this with little thing with the Jubilee on there. Can you see that? It's got a plastic part and then there's a bolt going into it. So what I'm going to do is make it simple. I'm going to get this airbox out of the way and give myself some more room, and I'll show you guys it in a bit more detail. One of the reasons I'm doing this is, as the car's tuned, you guys have been screaming at me in the comment section to get this done, and it's only like a £10 part, so it makes sense to do it. And one of the reasons it's good to do is, I'll show you this coolant hose here now. I've talked many times about this coolant return hose here, and it becomes very brittle right here and cracks, and the same happens for that flange. It will just be like basically almost Play-Doh. It just collapses and all the plastic becomes like into small pieces, which can clog up the your like lines which go for the ventilation in the cabin to give you heat and everything like that. So it's very important to change, and also if you are pushing power, it's a good maintenance thing to do, as well as just maintenance on a standard car anyway, especially like the charge pipe. This is another common thing which you guys should look at changing. So let me get this airbox off and I'll show you guys the rest. If you do enjoy this video though, please give it a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel to see more content on this M235i as well as the N55 platform. Alright guys, here we go. This is the part. So as you can see, there's two bolts that you need to remove, this one here and that one. But one thing I would suggest maybe you do first is try to remove the Jubilee, which I'm thinking is underneath the hose itself. So there's going to be some coolant spilling, so make sure you have something underneath the car to catch that. So what I'm going to do now is put a torch up there so I don't shine it in your face and you guys can't see it. I'm going to get the Jubilee off. I'm time-lapsing the whole video so you guys can see that. We'll get the Jubilee off, pull the hose off, the coolant's going to drain out onto like some sort of tray, and then we'll be able to get those two bolts off and remove the old one. And then we've got an aluminium one coming with an O-ring, and I know what you guys are going to say in the comments. The O-rings for the aftermarket ones aren't very good, and that's okay. I've ordered an aftermarket one with, I don't know, you could call it a bad O-ring, but I've ordered OEM BMW ones as well. So if at any point this one does leak, I'll have OEM ones to put straight into the car. Okay, so we've actually got one of the bolts out. We're moving on to the second one now. So far, it's a pretty easy job. One thing I will just mention, which is quite important, you want to make sure you do this on a cold engine, or at least an engine that hasn't been run for a good time. And the reason is we're dealing with like the coolant, which is operating at a boiling temperature. So you don't want to be undoing this and it's under pressure, and then you get like really hot coolant all over your hands and burn yourself. So I haven't driven the car all night, so in my case the coolant's going to be cold. But if you're going to do this, it's quite important that you just let the car at least come to some sort of like cool down before you start fiddling with the coolant. So just bear that in mind. But let's carry on. We've got one bolt out, as you can see, onto that one there. There's only two. For some reason on this clamp, there's no actually Jubilee for my hose. It's like kind of a one-time clamp. So we'll have to either get that off or cut a bit of the hose. So we'll have to work that out when we get to that point. Alright, we've been successful. Both bolts have been removed. And now the next part is trying to get that actual plastic flange out without it falling into a million pieces. So I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook groups where it just crumbles apart. So let's see how my one fares. Let's see if it crumbles apart or does it come out in one piece. So let's get that done. Both bolts are out, so now a case of just maybe using the hose to kind of wiggle this out, and I'll do my best to film it and we'll see if it goes into a million pieces or not. Alright guys, as you can see, this is the damage we're looking at. So you can already see whether this was actually the fact that I was removing it and this has caused it, but you can see a massive crack there. Let me get a torch on the phone so I can show you guys while I'm filming. Alright, as you can see, this isn't too well. You can see the crack on it. So I imagine if I like pull that at all, it's just gonna fall to pieces. Yeah, you can see it's stronger than I expected, but it just crumbles. Look at that. That plastic has absolutely had it. So you can see why it's so important to get these replaced. So what I'm going to do now is clean up where the new one will actually go in. And once that's cleaned up with some sort of cloth, it'll just seat better. We don't want to be putting the O-ring on any like, you know, small plastic parts and everything like that that are broken off. And the other thing we're going to do is somehow get that clip off the hose and get rid of the whole plastic one, because that didn't seem as bad as I thought it was going to be. But as you can see, that as I removed it, it was so brittle it just broke. So very important to get these done, because if this breaks when you're on track or you're driving from long distances, then you're pretty much stuffed. And if you don't have one that you can replace, then it's bad news. And like I've talked before, I keep one of these coolant return hoses in the car, because this is a simple thing you can fix. It's just a screwdriver, flat one, to remove it each side, and it can be changed really easily. However, this is a little bit more of a in-depth job. It's nothing as crazy as any, other stuff on the engine, but it's still something you really wouldn't want to do on the end of the road. So I'm going to get this cleaned up, get this new pipe off while I wait for the new one to be delivered, which should be in the next hour or two. Okay guys, so I did actually have loads of time lapses and actual footage of me removing this thing, but unfortunately I plugged the SD card in the dash cam for the car and it erased all the footage. So we're just going to basically recap of what the GoPro recorded, and I'll show you guys that now. So you didn't really miss much apart from some cool time lapses and stuff, but basically all that's happened is all I filmed on the GoPro was me removing this, which coolant went everywhere, so I have a tray underneath to catch it, and this is like a one-time metal, as you can see, clamp. There's the 2 bolts for it. So what I had to do was just cut the coolant hose, but obviously when the new part arrives later on today, we're going to go straight on there. I've also cleaned up all the hole and stuff so that when the O-ring goes in, it will seat really well. So all that's left to do now is wait for the new aluminium part to come, and then we'll be able to fit it, get the coolant all running through, and carry on the video. So yeah, really annoying that you guys missed all those parts, but all I have to do now is just wait for the part to arrive, and then when it does, we'll fit it and go from there. See you guys in a minute. Alright, new parts arrived. As you can see, I fitted this O-ring which came with it, so we're going to use this one temporarily. And yeah, really good build quality, can't see any imperfections with it, so we're going to get this fitted now. This is the old one just down here. As you can see, the plastic, if I shine on a torch maybe, you can see in there, it's all cracked, so definitely need to replace him. The new one comes with a stainless steel Jubilee clip as well, so we'll be fitting that on. So let me flip the camera around and show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this is what we're working with. Basically, all I have to do now is get this lined up with the O-ring in that gap there, and then put the 2 bolts on. So I'm going to do that now, as well as put this Jubilee clip over there, so that's ready to go, and then that will obviously go on there. So I'll get that done now, and I'll be back in a second, or I'll try and film it if I can. Hopefully my phone stays in the current place, but what I need to try and do is feed this up here. It's really annoying, those oil lines are kind of in the way. But if we can slot that in there, if it will go, don't want to drop it. I think the O-ring is going to make it quite tight of a fit, which is a bit annoying. Persistence is key with this though, just take your time and it will all work out. But you've got to be careful that we don't just pull it on one angle. Going in, we want to go in with it all threaded in nicely. But if I can get a bolt in just to hold the pressure. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't know why, the piece didn't want to fit into the block really well. And it's a difficult thing because the threads go into the block. So if you cross them or if one snapped, then you're in big trouble. So people say it's an easy job, and yes, it is. However, if you do snap one of those threads, you're in trouble. Little suggestion, put some of this stuff or some grease on the rubber O-ring. It just helps it slot in a lot better. Little tip. But that is looking really nice now. Really nice shiny aluminium part fitted. So what I'm going to do now is get the hose tightened up, put some of this airbox stuff back, and then we'll be able to run the car, maybe top up the coolant a little bit and check for any leaks. The new hose is on with the Jubilee clip connected, as you can see, so that's looking really good. I've made sure as well that underneath here it's all lined up nicely, as you can see there. that isn't oil. I promise you that is coolant that's dripped everywhere. So next part of it is get this sensor plugged back in, get all the airbox, you know, all finished up. And then obviously we'll have to make sure that as we've drained the coolant, because some of it's spilt, and caught it on a tray underneath, we'll have to make sure that the coolant is obviously going to be low. So we'll have to refill it. And as you can see, yeah, it's quite low. So I will top that up and then we'll start the car. Probably leave it run with the cap open just so I can keep an eye on the levels and check for any leaks. All right, finished it all. Car's running up to temperature now. If we check inside the cabin, I'll show you guys what temperature we're at. So looking inside of here, we're at 63 degrees Celsius water temp. I have made sure this is on the maximum now. As you can see, we're on the line there. So that's all good. And at the moment in time, no leaks are apparent. You can't really see down there too well, but it's easier in person. So what I'm going to do now is let this run up to about temperature, take it for a drive. I'll come back, check for any leaks, top the coolant up as necessary, and that's it, guys. That's how you replace the Mickey Mouse flange on your N55 engine and other N series. So if you enjoyed the video, like I said, how important it is to do this part, especially for the price of like £10, definitely recommended. I'll see how this aftermarket O-ring holds up. If not, I'll fit the genuine BMW ones. But if you did enjoy it, please give the video a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel to see more content on this M235i with the N55 engine. Apart from that, catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.